He didn't chase cameras, didn't perform for the spotlight, didn't scream when the net shook. He just turned, head down, and walked back to where the work begins again. Because when Dennis Tueart rose at Wembley with the noise curling into silence and the ball spinning above him, he didn't hesitate. He flipped his body backward and wrote his name into English football with a kick that defied gravity and expectation. No swagger, no rehearsed gesture, just one of the greatest goals ever scored and a man too grounded to gloat. That's who he was. The winger who came back when others moved on, the captain who wore the armband when the club was on its knees, the kind of player history forgets if we don't speak his name. This is not a tribute for the flashy, not for the branded, not for the ones who left for glory. This is for the man who returned when there was no glory left. Subscribe if you still believe the game owes something to the men who gave everything and asked for nothing. Dennis Tueart was born on 27th November 1949 in Newcastle, upon tying a city where football ran deeper than blood, but grace was never guaranteed. As a young boy, he dreamed of wearing the black and white shirt, of becoming a local hero, of hearing the Gallowgate roar his name. But Newcastle United saw something else, or maybe they just didn't see enough. They let him go. Quietly, dismissively. Like he'd never matter, and that was all he needed. Because rejection doesn't break some men. It builds them. Instead of fading, he crossed the divide. And in 1968, at just 18 years old, he signed for Sunderland, the rival club up the road, the place that gave him his first real chance. From the very first match, he played like someone with something to prove. Sharp, relentless, and always moving forward. In 6 years at Roker Park, he made 178 league appearances and scored 46 league goals, 217 appearances and 56 goals in all competitions. He was also named in the PFA Team of the Year, 2nd Division, in 1973-74 recognition for his outstanding performances in what would be his final season at Roker Park. He didn't just run lines, he tore them apart. He was a driving force in Sunderland's underdog run, and when the final arrived, he started on the left wing in the 1973 FA Cup final, part of the unwind that stunned Leeds United 1-0 at Wembley. To this day, many Sunderland fans still say Dennis Tueart was the soul of their side, a man who fought like a local, even when he wore enemy colours. Because Dennis wasn't built for comfort, he was built for the climb. And when Manchester City came calling in 1974, he was no longer the rejected boy from Newcastle. He was a weapon, and he was ready to be unleashed. He arrived at Manchester City in March 1974, a £200,000 signing who didn't carry hype, just purpose. They weren't getting a name, they were getting a problem for defenders, the kind that didn't stop running, didn't stop biting, and didn't care if you liked him. He stepped into a squad full of hard men and big boots: Mike Doyle, Joe Corrigan, Colin Bell before the injury, Peter Barnes breaking through on the other side. But it was Tueart who brought the bite, the knife hidden under the sleeve. 140 league appearances and 59 league goals in that first spell, 173 appearances and 73 goals in all competitions, proving it wasn't a fluke, it was fire. And in the 1975-76 season, he went one better. 24 goals in all competitions, top scorer, no debate, City's sharpest blade. He also won international recognition. He won 6 full England caps and scored 2 goals. He also played once for England U23 in 1974, scoring twice. Because all of it, every sprint, every shot, every goal was leading to one night. One stadium, one moment, one sentence written in thunder. Wembley, 28th February, 1976. League Cup Final, Manchester City versus Newcastle United. The club that threw him away versus the club that took him in. And the man caught between them was about to end the debate forever. It wasn't just a final for Dennis Tueart, it was the reckoning. The club that once told him he wasn't good enough now stood across from him on football's biggest stage. The black and white shirt he used to dream of was now just another target. The game was tight, 1-1, tension thick enough to snap. Then the cross came in, not perfect, not pretty, just high and hanging. And Dennis turned his back to goal, rose, hung in the air longer than physics allowed, and cut the silence in half. A bicycle kick, violent, precise, straight into the net. No celebration, no grin, no roar, Just a cold turn back toward the halfway line while Wembley lost its mind behind him. That goal didn't ask for attention, it demanded memory. Even Malcolm McDonald, Newcastle's icon, stood stunned. The most perfect overhead kick I've ever seen, and he chose to score it against us. At full time, Tueart tried to trade shirts with a Newcastle player, but they wouldn't let him through. Because even when he tried to explain, the truth was too heavy. Dennis Tueart had just won a final with the kind of goal legends rarely get, and he'd done it against the club that had once looked past him. The final score: Manchester City 2, Newcastle United 1. A trophy sealed by silence, steel, and gravity. That moment became myth. Years later, fans voted it the greatest goal in League Cup history. Not because of the technique, but because of the weight behind it. It wasn't revenge, it was a reminder. Some men are born to be underestimated, and some men make careers out of proving everyone wrong. There's a moment that can change a career, and then there's a moment that makes the world look up. For Dennis Tueart, that moment arrived in America of all places. In 1978, he left Manchester City to join the New York Cosmos. Not because he was finished, but because England no longer felt like home. At Cosmos, he wasn't just a footballer. He was a name on the marquee, sharing a dressing room with Franz Beckenbauer, Carlos Alberto, and for a fleeting moment, Pelé. He played in front of 70,000 at Giant Stadium, scored goals that echoed in a country still learning the sound of football. He won Soccer Bowl 78 with the New York Cosmos and was man of the match, scoring 2 in their 3-1 win over Tampa Bay. In 1979, he scored 16 in 27 league games. He wasn't a tourist, he was a destroyer on tour. As Tueart himself put it, "I didn't go to America to retire. I went to prove I was still one of the best." And he did. While others treated NASL like a lounge, he turned it into a crucible. Fast, lethal, technically elite. Even Pelé, the king himself, welcomed Tueart with the kind of quiet respect only real players earn. He became a poster for what British football could look like at full voltage. But England had unfinished business. In 1980, he returned to Manchester City not out of nostalgia, but duty. And yet, things had changed. City was drifting. The fire dimmed. The club that once chased silver now chased itself. Still, Tueart gave them all he had: 84 league appearances, 28 league goals, 103 appearances, and 36 goals in all competitions, trying to fan the embers into something that could burn again. He moved to Stoke City in 1983, making 3 league appearances, then to Burnley in 1984, 15 league appearances, 5 goals, before finishing with Derry City in 1985 to 86, 10 appearances, 1 goal, and retiring in 1986. He stood for ambition when the club felt like it was shrinking. He reminded fans and decision-makers alike what the badge used to mean. When the Etihad era began, Dennis Tueart was still around, quietly present, watching a new future rise on the foundation he helped lay. But he didn't flatter it. He didn't pretend the money could erase the past. He gave interviews. He spoke with clarity. He reminded the club that legacy matters, that history is not a brand, it's a responsibility. Even now, his words still echo. Not because of what he once did, but because of how he's never let go. Some players are remembered for their stats. Dennis Tueart is remembered for the standard. He wore the shirt when it meant something more, when it was soaked in graft, in Manchester rain, in the roar of the Kipax. He scored goals, yes. He lifted trophies, yes. But what made him unforgettable wasn't just the numbers. It was the noise that followed his effort. The silence he kept after brilliance. The way he flew for City and landed with nothing but humility. Ask any City fan from that era, they won't just describe his goals, they'll describe his grit, his edge, that feeling when he stepped on the pitch. We've got someone who'll give everything. He didn't chase the spotlight, he earned the silence that follows greatness. City has transformed, from Main Road to the Etihad, from fighting for pride to chasing trebles. But if you trace the roots, you'll find a man in 1976, mid-air at Wembley, redefining what sky blue courage looked like. You'll find a voice on the board when the club lost its compass. You'll find a fan who stayed loyal long after the game forgot how to say thank you. Dennis Tueart didn't posture. didn't perform. He just did the work, on the wing, in the boardroom, in memory. He never asked to be called a legend, but legends never do. And that's why even now he still belongs to Manchester City. Some players ask to be remembered. Dennis Tueart made it impossible to forget. A bicycle kick that echoed through time. A loyalty that outlasted contracts. A voice that stayed even when the crowd moved on. His story isn't just about goals, it's about grit, about walking away from rejection and turning it into legacy. If you remember that night at Wembley, if you've ever worn a shirt for more than show, if you believe football still belongs to the working man's roar, then his name still matters. He's 75 now, married to Joan, father of 3 sons. He runs a conferencing company, premier events, still speaks for the club's history, and after losing loved ones to cancer, donated all the royalties from his autobiography to cancer care. No testimonial, no Hall of Fame. But legacy, real legacy, isn't what you keep, it's what you leave behind. So keep the memory moving, keep the standard alive. Subscribe for more stories like Dennis Tueart's When Football Wasn't Fashion. It was family, it was fight, it was real.